This episode of the Policing Matters podcast is sponsored by Axon, the global leader in public safety technology. To learn more about Axon's ecosystem of hardware and software products for policing, defense, and security, visit axon.com. Here we are at Axon Week, and these are the training modules that some agencies are getting, and it is a self-contained set of modules. And let's see who's in VR Training Bay 01. Hey! It's our good friends Andy and Thi, and you guys, what are you guys doing in here?
Oh, well, this is our Axon Training Pod. And we're in here talking about VR and the flexibility of VR to train anywhere. We're also learning that a lot of agencies, even though anywhere is possible, don't have a lot of anywhere to train. And so this is a prototype we built based on feedback from agencies attending our roadshow to build a flexible training platform that they could either move around or put in specific locations across their districts and cities.
Yeah, it's an 8x8 square.
It's we're in an 8x8, so it's a 40x8 Connex box for the shipping container, and we've essentially upfitted it with sound deadening materials. It's fully insulated. It's there's a mini split right there, so it's fully HVAC, so you can train any time of year. And yeah, we're getting really good reactions out of it so far.
And as long as you have enough trainers, you could just keep running through trainees. And how about the rounds? That's got to be expensive to run somebody through multiple shots.
Yeah, well, that's a great part about VR. It doesn't cost anything, just some time. And on the average, about 5 minutes of time at headset, we see hundreds of rounds being fired on T10 or T7.
Yeah, because the real thing is expensive to fire.
That's right.
Yeah. So you're talking TASER 10, and Thi, you are our VR expert. What are you doing here what's that thing in your hand?
Yeah, so this is our VR headset, and we partner with a company called HTC, so we're using their headsets, but what we've built are custom TASER VR controllers. So this is the TASER 10 VR controller, which we just started shipping out the last few months. There's also, this one looks like a TASER 7. And something that we're just announcing this week is a handgun VR controller. So this is similar to a Glock 19.
Okay.
And the reason why we have these custom VR controllers is because we want to enable you to train with true-to-life weapons, especially on the TASER 10 and the TASER 7. When you're in our TASER VR range, we want you to be building the foundational skills that you will need to use in the field when you're deploying this weapon. So in the VR range, we have a variety of different skills where you can practice TASER 10 or TASER 7 deployments. So whether that's targets at different distances, wearing different clothing in different positions. There's also, they're moving around, which we found that is very valuable for our customers, because typically when they're practicing TASER deployments, they're on static targets, or maybe some trainers that are wearing what we call these halt suits, right, to protect them from the TASER deployments, but they're not moving very fast. Right. But what you actually see when you look at body camera footage in the field is often you have to deploy a TASER on somebody who's running towards you, running away from you. Right. So being able to practice that movement in the VR range has been really valuable for our customers. There's also a couple other modules around time deployments and draw repetitions. So those are our 6 TASER range skills. But this week we're announcing with the new handgun VR controller, we're also developing rapid decision-making use of force scenarios, which we call virtual reality-based training, or VRBT, and they're called live action scenarios, because what we do is we film with live actors, and it's 360-degree video, so it's, you see their human emotions and their behavior, and what you can do is you can choose as the officer when you arrive on the scene, depending on the scenario, what's the proper use of force depending on your agency policy, right? So if it's a attacker coming at you with a knife, some agencies that they have TASER 10, they may say, hey, try less lethal first, or transition to lethal if you need to. Or maybe you start with lethal, but then you see the subject drop the weapon, then you can transition to less lethal. So those are scenarios that we've developed that make use of the controllers so that you as the officer can figure out what is the right proper use of force and hopefully de-escalate.
Sure. So is it similar to the FATS training, the firearms training simulators, where whatever you do dictates how the scenario goes?
Yeah, that's right. So we've developed, the technology so that when you're in the scenario, based on what which controller we detect you using, then the subject will react accordingly.
Nice. And is it possible, say Andy over here is messing with you and he's the oversight supervisor, can he change the scenario on you?
Not right now. That's something we're going to be enabling next year.
Okay.
But at the end of this year, we'll also be developing some more scenarios where the trainer can pre-configure some things.
Yeah.
So change the environment that you're in. This scenario can take place in a campus setting, or it can take place in a homeless encampment. So we'll allow you as the trainer to change the environments, change the appearance of the subject, maybe even change the weapon. So maybe there's a scenario where the attacker has a knife, but you can change it to, is it a pocket knife? Is it a machete? So we will be enabling that by end of the year for the trainer to have more control over the parameters of the scenario.
Yeah.
But changing it real time is going to come next year.
Yeah, and so I think any cop in the field would say that in training scenarios, the only predictable thing is unpredictable.
Right.
Right? So, yeah, great to keep them on their toes, change up the situation.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the gamification, I know you guys have been avoiding that word, but I kind of like the word because our next generation of police recruits are all about, the Gen Zs are all into gamification. In the university setting, we are trying to implement those because they learn from them too.
Right.
How about you guys?
Yeah, so we've developed a couple of different games, one called TASER versus Zombies and Crash Test TASER, which in the past we only showed at some of our events like this Axon Week, but we heard from some of our customers that, one, it's a great way to get people engaged in VR, and also we've seen that by playing the game, and essentially the game is you can use our actual TASER 10 or TASER 7 VR controller, and the game just has different zombies or sort of crash test dummies coming at you at various speeds.
Yeah.
There's even dogs. Sometimes they'll be crawling, walking really fast. And you get to practice, deploying your TASER energy weapon at these different targets. And it does help, we believe, build some skills around, getting hands-on with the weapon and understanding how to place the probes, right? So similar to our training, in the game, you get feedback around, did you get full NMI, partial NMI? If you're hitting sensitive areas, you lose points. So again, it's edutainment, right? It's definitely, a game. It's not real training, but we do see there's value in getting people familiar with VR and getting, again, more repetition and familiarity with the TASER energy weapon. Yeah,
and so many applications. We talked a little bit about recruiting, how you could use it at, a tabling event where you have an agency who's got, a whistle and a pen and some flyers, and, you either walk up and take something or leave. What a great idea. How attractive is that? Put a headset on a potential recruit, run them through a couple scenarios. Are you hearing about people doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, our solution is so portable. You can bring it to anywhere where you're doing a recruiting event. And so what we hear our agency is doing is either putting them through some of our community engagement training scenarios, for instance. So those are shot in 360-degree video with live actors. But we have a variety of different scenarios you can go through, a lot focused around mental health, or maybe dealing with community members that have a disability, somebody who's hard of hearing or has Alzheimer's or English is their second language. So in a lot of those scenarios, you start with the perspective of the community member, and then you change your perspective, and then they'll say, okay, now you sort of have experienced what the community member is facing. Now you come in as an officer responding to a call, and it gives you sort of different branching options, like choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
There are certain points in the scenario where you can decide, okay, now you've experienced this person who just had a schizophrenic episode. As you approach them, how do you want to engage with them? And so that's been, I think, really compelling for a lot of our customers to either use with recruits, or sometimes in community events, right? So they want the community to understand, hey, this is the variety of things we have to deal with as law enforcement, and they also get a sense of, hey, if I were the officer on the scene, what would I do?
Sure.
So I think there's applicability there in sort of educating the community in sort of what law enforcement has to deal with.
Yeah, and so for force options, and so we know about maybe using them for recruitment, using them for community engagement. I'd love to put a headset on every member of the police commission from the city I'm from. Did I tell you I'm from San Francisco?
You did.
Yeah, so I would love for each of them to run through a couple scenarios to get them to see that it is a level in the use of force progression that takes us a step away from live fire. And are you doing that? Electeds, people, maybe critics in the community?
Yeah, 100%. So we've actually had council members go through and make statements and say, I had no idea how fast things evolve in a use of force environment or incident, and I had no idea what it takes for an officer to perform at a high level to do that. So it's been incredibly useful for agencies to engage with their electeds and put them through these, because to take a person and go put them in an academy in a real use of force environment simulated, there's a lot of resources, people don't have time. I mean, within minutes you can do that with someone in their office. And so to your point, I think a lot of agencies are doing that today, and T talked about the community engagement side. We got a lot of community members, same thing, they just don't know because they haven't ever been in the environment, and we can simulate that really well.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So the last question I have about VR training, is there a matrix where you can see what the student's doing, how their muzzle control is, their point of fire, things like that, muzzle discipline, all of that?
Yeah, so we have that with our TASER range skills. So at the end of each exercise has 10 targets. So you will get sort of an after action report at the end of the module where you can see for each of those 10 different targets, where did your probes go? How many probes did you deploy? What was the spread? Did you achieve full or partial NMI? And so you as the trainee can see that, and your instructor can be viewing that on a tablet and debriefing with you. You can even sort of replay and see, where did your probes go in, walk around the dummy and sort of inspect, where your probe deployments went. So we do enable that in our TASER range skills.
Nice. And in real life, the TASER 10 has the ability to fire 10 darts now. And I understand that only 4 of them are actually charged at any given time.
Yeah, so no different than the TASER 7.
Okay.
Right? We can only send energy to a max of 4.
Okay.
But the beauty about TASER 10 is it doesn't care what for.
Yeah.
We never could reverse the polarity in any of our weapons before.
Okay.
And so now what happens if you deploy 3 darts into somebody because the second trigger pull didn't get the incapacitation that you wanted?
Sure.
And then the third dart may be too close to the first dart, and you deploy a 4th dart. And let's even say you deploy 5 and 6 darts. What the TASER 10 does is it figures out which darts are most likely to incapacitate and deliver NMI at the farthest away, right? So we love large probe spreads, and it doesn't care what's positive or negative anymore.
Okay.
And so that's the beauty of it. It all that internal computing happens, and
Right.
the officer doesn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and there's also the ability to use it on multiple suspects.
Technically, you can. The challenge with that is, of course, how can I continue to justify using it on one person and then the second person, and then if you're connected, same device, to 2 different people, a trigger press means that those 2 people are receiving electricity. And so if the first person is now compliant but the second isn't, there's a challenge there to that justifiable use of force. So that's an agency policy decision. Sure. The machine can do it, but generally agencies write that very carefully. With
Yeah,
policy.
got it. And that makes sense, but I go by the motto, always good to have and not need, than need and not have. Hey, do we have a chance to go take a look at the command module, the supervisor's
Absolutely.
module?
Yeah,
All
let's
right,
go.
Great.
let's check it out.
So you have the ability to have that intercom system, and again, you, the instructor, instead of having to go and set everybody up individually, and if they're having a problem going out of this room and going into that particular one, now I can walk them through, because not only going to see what they're doing, but I'm going to see what's on the headsets on that second set of screens, so I can walk them through from here while still keeping my eye on other students that are still actively engaged in that training.
Cool.
It's completely modular too, built out. However, you're going to need it at whatever your agency needs are for that, and it's either you can make it permanent, semi-permanent, or you can make it truly portable, bring it to wherever you need to bring it, whatever precinct you need to drop it at for a month or two, when everybody there to do some training, and then go somewhere else. So it's, again, it's plug and play, and it's all also one of those things that's going to be part of that. If you are on TASER contract, body-worn camera, everything is another line item, just adding it to that quarterly, monthly, whatever cost, so there's no capital outlay, there's no, hey, I have to go to the city council, I gotta go to the county commission and ask for however much this costs. I have no idea what a price point is. That's the sales side, not the training side. But it's completely modular. Now what we have going on here, were you guys able to hit the live fire range in there? Yeah. So that showed the ranges, that showed the live action, virtual reality based training. Out here, we're focused more on the gamification of training. Making it, because in the last, cops that have been hired in the last 10, 15 years, they are familiar with, comfortable with, recognize video games. They don't associate video games with real life. Otherwise, we see a bunch of cops running around, jumping up and down in the middle of gunfights, right? The physics of the video game don't relate to the physics of real life. But if they're immersed in an environment that is so beyond normal outside world comprehension, like zombies coming at you, robots coming to attack you, they're not equating the tactics that they use in that to the tactics they're going to use in the field, but we can still focus on building the fundamentals, building that practical mindset on proper use without mag dumping into somebody and out in the real world the same way they mag dumped into a robot in a training environment. And you're able to hit all the benchmarks. You're able to situational awareness, target and probe identification, proper probe placement, sensitive areas, limited probe effectiveness, limited spread versus full spread, thick clothing disconnects, straight misses, hits in sensitive areas, moving targets, alternate firing positions, animal use, all of that benchmarked and fundamentals trained toward and logged as training, but never having the student in their mind relate this as, oh, this is training. That's a light. We just didn't plug it in. Yeah. It's just a way, gun lockers here, so if they come out, they put their live on any live weapons, because while the outside is maybe metal, this is not, and this is not even bullet resistant, so we don't want live stuff introduced into this training environment. And again, you can make this as modular as you want. You want to put two of these side by sides, knock out a couple interior walls, make a larger, like CGI scenario bay, or like knock out a long hallway and make it a live fire range. Maybe put two more on the top.
All right, so we are back and we're in the training room where the supervisor is running through the scenarios. He's seeing what's going on in the individual rooms. And does he have a PA capability to give instructions?
Yeah, that's right. So we'll be able to monitor the performance of the officer in each room.
Okay.
And then they can communicate to the officer if they need to as
okay.
well. And what that allows the instructor here and the command to do is just see how they're performing, and then ultimately, do they need a spare battery, or they just be able to monitor them.
Yeah. And so you have these monitors here, and T, you were talking about the ability to cast the actual image of the video of what's going on inside the headset, so the monitor knows as well.
Yeah, that's right. We have the ability from the headset to basically cast onto a second screen, essentially.
Yeah.
That could be a tablet, that could be another monitor, so you as the trainer can see what they're seeing in headset.
All right. Hey, thanks so much, Thi Luu, Andy Wrenn. You guys are doing a great job, and hope to see these in a city really close to me. Like my city. Hey, thanks for what you do. You're making cops safe.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Axon is the global leader in public safety technology. Founded in 1993 with a mission to protect life, Axon has become a one-stop shop for technology that keeps communities and public safety professionals safe, including body-worn cameras, TASER energy devices, and immersive VR training. Axon's moonshot goal is to cut gun-related deaths between police and the public in the U.S. by 50% before 2033. For more information, visit axon.com.